Hello everyone, welcome to another video. Today we're going to talk about one of my favorite subjects of all time, creature design. I love creature design. It's the best application of imagination and creativity, one of the best at least, that I know of. Um, we're going to apply everything we've learned so far so you can see how even the basics are still applied to more advanced things. Creature design is part of computer game creation and movies, comics. They all benefit from good creatures. Maybe it's aliens, maybe it's, I don't know, some enemies, some interesting enemies. We're gonna learn how the thought process on how to draw them, how to draw anatomy, how to use animal and human anatomy to combine into something cool and that looks interesting and lifelike, sort of. And let's start. Yeah. Okay, so what are monsters really, and how they came to be? So, in most world mythologies, monsters are some sort of representation of chaos, usually primordial. I think that's where dragons come from, like Tiamat, for example. And most monster design, like archaic and ancient monster design, I'm talking about ancient Egyptian, Babylonian, and such, are usually a combination of animals. For example, in Babylonian mythology, as described by the Gilgamesh saga, which is the first written story ever discovered, like the earliest story ever discovered. There are all sorts of weird monsters. My favorite were the Scorpion Men, who protected the path to the underworld, to the land of the dead, which Gilgamesh had to travel. I really liked the ancient Egyptian lions with snake necks, like lions with really long necks. I always thought that was like a cool image. And if you look at ancient Assyrian, Babylonian demons and stuff like that, it's usually a combination of the most dangerous animals that lived at the time. So it's like vultures and snakes and scorpions and humans and lions and all combined together to create all sorts of strange demons. So, and of course, if you check ancient Greek mythology, then you have centaurs and fauns and Medusa the Gorgon, the woman with the snakes for hair. So combining humans and animals, which are also most of the ancient Egyptian gods, by the way, humans and animals is usually the way to go. Now, how to do it well and how to draw it and how to make interesting looking monsters is the purpose of this video, and we'll get to it in a second. I'm just gonna review what we're going to learn. So in order to make an interesting monster, you need to be aware of proportions, because proportions tell a story, what shapes you use, because that's another layer of information, and some sort of interesting proportions between the head, the body, the legs, and it all needs to be balanced as well, unless so it won't look like as if, I don't know, it'll fall down. When we get animation, it will become even more important and apparent how important it is. but up until then, we're going to I'm going to start having good. I'm so sorry. We're going to develop good practice. Okay, I guess that's what I was trying to say. Okay, so here is some scorpion men. Okay, so let's start. Okay. So the easiest way to draw monsters is to start with the proportions. So here is the simplest way I know of to create interesting looking monsters. You draw 3 circles. One of them is the head, the other one is the torso, and the third one is the pelvis. Now, they can be of every size you want, but do try to make them in different sizes because this will create a more interesting monster. Now, which is which in these 3 in these combinations of circles I made, I'm sorry. This can be the head, or maybe this is the head, and vice versa. Now, as soon as you decide that, all you need to do is connect them in a naturalistic way. Okay, so 1 second, so you can see everything. Okay, here we go. So, don't just draw it, don't just combine them like this. It's possible, but it won't look as good. I submit that you should start with the like the widest points and connect with lines that make it feel as if it's part of a body and not like a balloon connected to something. So I continue the line, and here is a monstrous body. Now obviously the head is very, very small. We're going to talk about head types, but it means that the arms are very, very big. So it's going to look like gorilla-like. It's going to invoke gorilla vibes. Okay, again, I apologize for my English. Sometimes I get stuck. And the legs, which we will discuss very, very soon, I mean on this video, don't worry, is something like this. Okay, now balance-wise, there's no problem here because they are both 2 connection points to the ground, and the main mass has an anchor point underneath it, so it won't fall down. So I can draw a small tail, and let's say something like this. And again, heads we will discuss real soon. Now let's see how this works with the other proportions I've drawn here. So something like this. Okay, so now we have a large head, and because it's a large head, then I can actually go into details. So I'll explain some things about the head. The more in front the eyes will be, the more predatory it will look, and more dangerous it will look. And the more the eyes are to the side of the head, it'll look more benign. Okay, why? Because that's how predators and herbivores are built in the wild, and our brain reacts to that. Okay, the size of the mouth is another thing to consider. So if it has a huge mouth, then it probably uses it for something, right? So big mouth, like we talked about on our face design, head design. Big mouth will make our brain think about getting bitten, so it's usually dangerous creatures who have large mouths, so I can actually make some protruding fangs, and I'll draw the eyes here because it's a predator. I can add stuff if I want, like a fin perhaps, just to make the shape more interesting. But let's talk about the arms and the legs. So if I'm trying stuff out, and I already know what I'm going to draw, but if I'm trying stuff out, then I can draw the lines. Start with lines because it's easier to fix and easiest to ignore if you go with something else. I want to draw something like this. Now, let's talk about an arm like this. It looks kind of an insectoid arm, I guess, but it doesn't have to be. Animal anatomy, and I don't think there is like actual animals with this kind of arms, but animal anatomy is very similar to human anatomy. The same bones are there, just the length of them and the angle of them is a bit different. It's easier to show on the legs, but we have an arm here, so I'm just gonna give it some volume, and let's say this is the shoulder, easy, right? This is the elbow, and all of this is the hand, so it's a very, very long hand with some fingers in the end. Okay, easy. And the leg, and again we're gonna do an actual demonstration in a minute, but here's the thigh, here's the shin, and here is the heel, and a long foot, which ends in toes. And that's like 90% of animal legs right there, okay? And because the head is so big, I had to draw an arm that goes forward, more forward, to balance it out. And in order to make the creature be able to stand on its hind legs, I'm going to draw a larger tail, so there's a counterbalance for it to stand. Something like this. Too thick, I think it should start from here. Here we go. So another interesting monster, and again, it may not look realistic or something like that, but there's some realistic aspect to it in the way that it not handles itself because it's not moving, but it holds itself up. So balance is important. And here we have a creature that will have a huge, huge head, way too big to support itself, and this angle will determine the fact that it has probably like folds here of belly or something, and it's going to be a creature that crawls, like the head is too big, so the head like slides on the ground, and the hind legs like give it a push, and we'll give it not a large tail because there's no need to actually balance because the head is on the ground, but the hind legs are going to have to be very, very powerful and thick. It's the same leg as this and this. If you can, hopefully you can tell that it's the same structure, just the angles are a bit different and the lengths of the bones are a bit different. And that's really the secret. That's all there is to it. Now you can draw all the monsters you want, but let's make an actual demonstration. So I'm going to give it some hook-like claws, so it can really dig into the earth while it's pushing his head forward. And the arms are kind of like useless, so they can be very, very small, like a T-Rex's. A T-Rex is essentially a mouth with legs, so it doesn't need arms. So here we have like some tiny claw, and because it can open its jaw downwards, as jaws usually work, it will have to open it upwards. So first of all, I'm gonna make the jaw like look more like something that can slide on the ground. So something like this. This is gonna be like very, very tough skin. And the mouth will be opening upwards, so something like this. Not to confuse anyone. And again, just thinking about the world of animals, I'm going to give him a horn, so if something jumps on his back, he will open his mouth really, really wide and try to hit it with this horn. So this is like his protection. I'm going to draw the eye down here, more to the front, because again, it's a predator. And yeah, so maybe it'll have an armored back, again, for protection. The thing is, predators usually will never have horns or hooves, at least not in nature. So this is probably an omnivore and not an actual apex predator like a lion or wolves or crocodiles. But here we go. Now, as you can see, three very, very different creatures, and all of them are based on some small game of proportions, and the possibilities are really, really endless. All you need to do is put more space between the spheres, make them closer, and play with the height. You'll see it in a few more times during this video, and you can really, really get your mind to go anywhere. Okay, so let's talk a bit about legs and arms. So here, essentially, is the bone structure of a human leg. Okay, so this is the thigh, some cartilage, I think it's called, in the knee area, and the shin bone, the heel, and the foot, and toes. Okay, and there's a bone here that actually connects to the pelvis. So this is a human leg. Most mammal legs are built exactly the same way. So a cat is something like this. This is a bit longer. The heel is here. It goes down. This is the end of the foot, and fingers, and they are bent forward. And this is the leg, the hind leg of a cat. Same build as the human one. You just need to be aware of the angles. A wolf or a dog has a bit longer thighs, and they are a bit more straight down, but the rest is pretty much the same as a cat. Okay, that's the heel, that's the foot, this is the arch, and the toes. Okay, a horse is even straighter and weirder because it has only one finger and a huge toe, but it has a very short thigh, very, very long shin, heel, and a toe. And that's a horse's leg, something like this. Now a bird, and I know a bird is not a mammal, so please bear with me, is built the same way, okay? Only the thigh is very, very, very short. The shin is very long and goes backwards. That's why bird legs usually seem to go the wrong, quotes, way. And this is the heel, long foot, and fingers, or claws, I guess it's called. And look at me drawing the cylinders. Okay, and usually there's another claw to the back. Okay, and that's pretty much, if you use these, there's no limit to what you can do. Let me show you. I'm going to keep this ahead of me here, and the same way I just drew a dog's leg or something, I can make it more muscular and have some claws protrude at the heel, and do some actual claws, and that's a dragon's foot. You can draw some scales here, and here, and here, and that's pretty much it, really. With a minimum of practice, you can get some really, really unique and incredible monsters. Okay, but now let's talk about the front legs. So this is a human arm. That's the shoulder. That's the elbow here. Forearm. Another. I forgot how they're called. I'm sorry. But you know what? You realize what I'm talking about because you have arms. I really, really hope. Joints. That's the one, and the fingers. Okay. Okay, so that's a human arm. Now, cat arms. Let's call it arms. Okay, not front legs, but cat arms and dog arms and all of that are, and even horses. It's the same structure. You have shoulder, arm, elbow, forearm. Now again, the lengths are a bit different, so the actual hand goes down and the fingers are flat on the ground. Okay, you can actually do a similar pose with your own hand or arm, but it doesn't feel very, very natural. But that's how cat and dogs front legs or arms are built. And again, I can do some claws, fin, make it more muscular, and I have monster's forearm. Okay, very, very easy. This one has a protruding, kind of like a velociraptor's claw, just one, to make it interesting. Let's talk about wings. So a wing is built, again, the same way. You have a shoulder, you have an arm, you have an elbow, forearm, and one huge finger that is divided into three. And this thing is the volume of the wing, and I'm not going to go into like actual feather arrangement. Usually there's smaller and softer feathers up here, and I think two lines of feathers there. And a bat wing is even easier, because if you have an arm, and again, I sincerely hope you do, then you have a shoulder, you have the arm, the elbow, and here you have a big toe, one long finger, and you just connect them with the membrane. Okay, and that's pretty much it. The angles of the fingers are maybe different. And with all the information I just taught you, the body, like the body proportions with the head, and the arms and legs shapes of creatures, you pretty much have, and wings, by the way, you pretty much have all the information to start and creating really, really cool monsters. So let's do some of that. Now, it really, really helps if you look at actual animals and use them as reference points. You don't have to, because it's creatures, but it will definitely help you create something that looks more naturalistic. But, and we're not going to get into like horror monsters, like The Thing, and Berserk monsters, and Lovecraftian monsters. That's a bit later on, about what makes things scary and stuff like that. But again, if I draw this, or even let's use shapes, okay? So I start with this, and then I do this, and something like this. Usually it's circles are better. So it's going to be some sort of a bird thing. And this one is going to have the arm going backwards and then down, very, very long. And I'm going to have some sort of a bat wing folded backwards. And here I'm going to draw actual bat legs. Usually, if I remember correctly, go backwards, so it can hang itself upside down. So I'm going to draw like a long one claw, and so it can walk, although it will be a bit awkward, an awkward walker, if you can imagine that. And but it can hang itself upside down. If it's hanging himself upside down, it can't have a long tail, and regardless, because he's a flyer, he needs a tail that will help him maneuver in the air. So I'm giving him a rudder-like a ship's steering wheel, rudder-like tail, something like this. It's very flat and kind of looks like an axe, but okay. And when it flies, this thing moves from side to side and navigates the air flow. I'm gonna make it a bit taller too. So yeah, something like that. And here's something you haven't seen before. Let's try. The head is medium sized, the torso is tiny, but the pelvis is huge. What does that look like? When they're facing, when we're looking at them straight on, which is important to realize, because if you want to draw concept art for games, then you need to know how to draw all these things from, at least from the front and the sides, so the 3D artists can create them. Will we ever get into 3D? I'm not sure. I know 3D, I can teach 3D, but it's not in a free program, so I'll have to learn how to use Blender, which is a free program. So let's make a really, really fat looking dragon. Cylinders, look at that. This one is going forward and is facing us, but the other one is facing backwards, and the arm. So you have something like that. I apologize if it was too confusing. Again, it looks like he is taking a step forward, because here the body is hiding the foot, the leg, I'm sorry, and here is the foot moving forward. So if, let's again make some, this time, even though the chest area is small, I'm gonna give him some dangerous looking arms maybe. Let's try, even though they're gonna be really, really thin. I'm gonna make them longer and kind of like a mantis, but it's not. It's like a big finger. And because it looks a bit horrifying with the dissonance between the body and the arms, let's have a strange head. So I'm gonna put the eyes really, really low and to the side, and the mouth is gonna be above the eyes, which just makes it look weird. And I'm gonna give the eyes like an octopus pupil, which goes like this, or a goat even, and they're kind of similar, although the octopus has some more weird stuff around it. So yeah, it looks really, really alien, and yeah, hopefully not too weird, although it'll have, the mouth is going to have to be opened upwards. So yeah, that's our creature. Now the more the proportions are, there is more difference in sizes, then the creature will look more extreme. Okay, so like a huge head, huge pelvis, huge legs, like huge arms or wings or whatever. Let's make something with huge wings. So, smallish head, and this is going to be big. This is going to be medium-sized. Okay, so again, the dinosaurs that had this, the flying dinosaurs that had this protrusion, use this thing to navigate in the air. So it's kind of relevant for the design of the creature. Now, it can be a really interesting thought process. As soon as you start asking yourselves questions when you draw the monster, like, what does it eat? How big it is? How big is it? Then even these simple questions determine what kind of creature. So if it's a predator, then how does it catch its prey? Let's say this one has huge claws. Because it's flying, I can't use the arms because it's going to be wings. So let's elongate the claws. And in order for him to actually stand, I'm going to give him like a bone thingy, like a heel. And the question, like answering what does it eat, if it's like an alien planet or if you're inventing everything, then you need to invent what kind of creature it eats. So if, let's say, if I draw a beak like this, then it probably flies above the water and catches fish. Okay, and I'm gonna draw some very, very big. Now, the irony here is that a flying creature cannot afford to be so thick, like have huge muscles, torso muscles. All the bones are going to be hollow, so it can fly. It's going to be light enough to fly. And again, let's have I apologize for the weird sound. My computer just restarted for unknown reason, and that was the scanner. So here we have, again, let's have a small claw so it can actually anchor itself on the ground. And here is another interesting, hopefully interesting creature. And I can actually do this for hours and hours, and sometimes do. If you want to make it more horror-y, like give the impression of something really, really scary, try and put in human parts, like some extra hands or a human face somewhere. That's what the Berserk usually does. It works wonders. So if I draw this, let's say something a bit not too out there. Okay, so if I draw this, and again, here's like an interesting body. It looks kind of like a herbivore's body, like a plant-eating dinosaur. Let's change that. So a big mouth. Again, something that's more predatory. And I can put a face in here. Let's have it scream, just so you know it's nothing good is happening here. And sharp fangs all around it. Now, as soon as you go this path, then there's no need to think of what it eats and what are his natural enemies and stuff like that, because this one immediately leaves the realm of the natural world, and it becomes something. The eye subtracts. Let's give him some insect-like antennae. So it kind of looks like a deer, but not really. Okay, and now I can really exaggerate things and take them as far as I want and can. So let's give him just one arm. Very human arm, just no thumb. And here is the thigh, here is the knee, here is the shin, and here is the foot. Now I'm trying to preserve some human anatomy so it's not too weird, because human anatomy will make it look way stranger. Okay, so this creature looks both really sad because it's gonna have to crawl with this one arm, and also terrifying because, you know, it looks like a very deformed human. So, yeah. Let's stop here.